Hello Infiniteers, and welcome back to my Tron toy box. We are almost finished with this series. All we have left to build is the battle with the MCP, and that will take 2 episodes to complete, including this one. The goal today is to bring the MCP to life by creating the rotating shields and giving it some glowing eyes, and then next time we will hook up the logic for the battle itself. Now, to save a little time, I have placed a few creativitoys that we're going to need ahead of time before I started recording. So let's cover those, and then I will place the remaining toys that we're going to need. Oh, and by the way, I do not have logic diagrams for today's episode because you don't really need them. So here's what I have placed so far. I have placed 2 action buttons and 2 logic gates, as well as an effects generator, and then over here 2 more action buttons and a repeater. And I'll get to those blocks over there in a moment. We're going to use these buttons and their corresponding logic gates to bring the MCP to life and shut it down. And I'll cover those over there in a moment, but basically it's a little trick that I've shown you before. Okay, so let's start with the other pieces that we're going to need. Oh, and I also placed a couple of locators up here for the eyes. And these are centered right in here inside the little eye sockets. And there are 2 of them. Okay, so we are going to need to place a couple of paths. And in order to help us get the spacing right, we're going to use a basic block to kind of help us. So come right down to the chin, go 2 spaces out, or 2 blocks out. We're going to place 2 blocks on the back side as well. And then over on the sides, oops, right here, we're going to place 2 more. And right here, like this, 2 more. Okay? So that's going to help us get the spacing for the paths as they go around the MCP. All right, let's pick up this locator and put that back to get back to the Creativitoys. We're going to come down to the path creator. And we are going to create 4 rows of shields. They're going to be moving in opposite directions. So we're going to use 2 paths to do that. And the first path is going to go right here at the end of this block at the same level as the bottom of the mouth, just like you see here. I'll place that, and that did not put me into point mode, so let me delete that and do that again. We're on the edge of the block. There we go. Okay, so the first path is going to go in a counterclockwise direction. So we're going to go this way. We're going to put a point on the end of each of these blocks. And then exit. Now your path will not be perfectly circular because there's only 3 blocks on this side of the MCP and there are 5 on this side. So your path is going to be oval and not round. That's okay. From the player's standpoint, as they're over here battling it, they're not going to be able to tell. All right, then we'll come into the path properties for our first path. We're going to change the speed to be the maximum of 300. We're going to turn on looped and turn off auto start objects when connected. Okay, so there's our first path. Now our second path, if you start right on top of that one and go up 2 nudges so that you're level with the top of the mouth, we're going to place our path that way. And this time we're going to go clockwise. So this time we're going to go the other way around. And we're going to place the points directly over top of the other ones in the first path. And then we'll come over to this path's properties and we're going to set it the same way. So the speed will be 300, looped on, auto start objects off. Okay, so there are our paths, and now we can take out our little helper blocks here, because we're done with those. Okay, and there we are. Now, the next thing we're going to need are the blocks for the shields. And for that, we're going to use this piece out of the blocks drawer. Okay, it's the short block wall. And you're going to place this not so that it's this way, but so that it's that way. Okay, so as you're facing towards the MCP, it's the one on the back, not out this way. Does that really matter? Probably not, because we're not going to be setting any horizontal or backward-forward offsets, but I think it's probably safer just to orient it the way that I have. And we're going to change the property on this, the style. We're going to use the Tron theme. So you have to go over to the right a little bit to find it. And there it is. I'll set that to be the theme, so that all the blocks we put down from here on out will use that theme. And we're going to need 4 rows of blocks, as I mentioned. So let me pick this up. As I put these down, I don't want to be too close to this, because the bounding box for that extends way out here, as you see. And I don't want these to be difficult to pick up because they're very thin. So we want to drop this down, all of these blocks down in this region between these 2 curved canyon pieces. So the first one we're going to put over here like this. And this will be for the bottom row, okay? And for the bottom row, we need 6 blocks. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. For the second row, we're going to need 13 blocks, and this is going to get a little trickier here. So let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. For the, let's spread these out a little bit. For the third row, we need 11 blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And for the top row, we need 5 blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? And let me just point out also that there are a lot of blocks there, but you can see we don't have many creativitoys, all right? So this is not going to be difficult to hook up. It's just going to take some time. And I just want you to be aware of that, so don't freak out when you see all of this. But I'm going to show you what you need to do. I'm not going to show you how to hook up every single block, but we'll do this one step at a time, and I think you'll see it's pretty straightforward. Okay, we're going to use these buttons over here to start and stop the MCP. And I'm going to route the button signals through these logic gates in order to make it easier to plug this into the battle logic next time. You see, by having the logic gates here actually do all of the work, we're just going to have one connection from the button to the logic gate. The logic gate will start everything up or shut it all down. And then all we have to do then next time is just make a single logic connection from our battle logic into the logic gate to start it up or to shut it down. So that's why we're using the logic gates. It's just to make life a little bit easier. So we'll use this button to start up the MCP. So we'll do a new logic connection. When pressed, we'll input into this gate. And we'll connect this up. New logic connection on output. Let's do the eyes first, because this is the easiest. So we're going to play looped. And we're going to do... should be a subtle sparkle. Here we go. Okay. And this effect is going to go with the locators up in the eyes. So we're going to do a new locator connection. Connect that up here. Same thing with the other one. Connect that locator up to the other, or that effect generator, sorry, to the other locator. Okay. And then this one we'll use to shut it down. So, new logic connection when pressed on that button will input into this gate. And a new logic connection on output. Come over to the effects generator and stop looping the effects. And you can test this out pretty easily before we do anything else. And it's hard to see down here from the floor, and it's hard to see with the locators in the way. Let's come up here. And there you go. So there's a little bit of life to it, a little bit of movement, which you need. Go ahead and stop that effect, because otherwise the MCP is just a bunch of static blocks and it doesn't move. All right, so the other thing we need to do when we start this up is on the logic gate here, there's a new logic connection on output. We need to do a reset and play on both paths. And again, connect it up to the logic gate, not the button. And a reset and play. And then on the other logic gate for the shutdown, new logic connection on output, we'll do a reset and stop on each path. That'll stop the shields moving. Okay. So basically we've got 3 connections on each logic gate. And again, that's just going to save us time next time. So when we want to plug this into our battle logic, we just input into the gate. We have to make 1 logic connection instead of 3. Okay. Now these 2 buttons over here are going to turn on and off the repeater. And I'm going to use the repeater to make it easier to build the shields. It's the same trick that I used in episode 24 of my Disneyland series when I built King Arthur's Carousel. There's certain block properties after you attach them to a path that you can change, like the horizontal and vertical offsets, and the game will move those blocks immediately so that you can see the result. But then there are other block properties, like the reset percentage, that does not update automatically. And you have to reset the path first to see what that value does to your block. And so that's what this is going to do for us here, is we're going to use the repeater to do the reset for us automatically so that we can see the results right away without having to manually reset every path after every block to see what we did. So on our repeater, we'll set the properties to 1 second. We will use this button to start it up. So when that's pressed, we'll turn on the repeater. When this button is pressed, we'll turn off the repeater. And on the repeater, we'll do a new logic connection on repeat. We'll come up to each path and do a reset and stop. So every second when we turn that on, it's going to do a reset and stop, which will update the path. So as we have a block selected and we're setting the reset percentage, we'll be able to see what that does to our block. Okay? All right, now we're ready to start building the shields. And I'm going to begin with the second row here, the one that has the most blocks, because this is the row that's going to be going right in front of that mouth and most effectively blocking the player's shots. All right, and so let's come down here and turn on our repeater. And let's hook up our first block. We'll come over here to the end of this row. I'm going to open the logic menu for the block and do a new path connection. We are going to connect it to the bottom path. Okay? And then we're going to select that block, open up the properties, and inside here we're going to turn on orient along the path, and you see what that did to the block. So to fix the orientation, we need to change the rotation to 90 degrees, okay? And that will put the block back in the proper orientation. And then we want to change the reset percentage. And for the first block, we're going to set this to 5. And you can see that moves it along the path because I have the repeater going. Okay? And everything else under here we leave the same for this row. So we're not going to set the vertical offset on this one at all. Okay? So pretty straightforward. Let's do another block just to kind of give you the feel for this. So we'll do a new path connection. Come over to our bottom path, toy box path. Select the block, go into the properties, toy box path, orient along the path, fix the rotation by setting it to 90. And then for this one, we're going to set the reset percentage to 10. Okay, and that put the block out here. So you got a tiny little bit of a gap here, but you're not going to be able to shoot through that. There's just no way the projectiles are going to get through there. But by leaving a little bit of a gap, I don't have to put as many blocks on this path. Okay? All right, so you're going to go and do the same thing for every one of these blocks in this row. Okay? And the only difference between those and what I just did with the other two is the reset percentage. So this one is going to be 15. This one is going to be 25. This one is going to be 30. This one's going to be 40, 50, 55, 60, 70, 80, 85, and 95. Okay? That's the only difference. So I'm going to go ahead now and hook up the rest of these blocks, and I'm going to do this offline so this goes quickly. And I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, I am back, and that took me about 10 minutes to hook up all of the rest of those blocks. And you can see from the reset percentages that I picked that it left some gaps in the shields. And you'll notice they're not evenly spaced. So here we have 2 blocks together. Here's just 1. Here you've got 3. So it's not predictable to the player when the gaps will appear. And that's kind of important, because if it becomes too predictable, then the challenge becomes too easy. So you want those gaps to appear at irregular intervals. Okay? And let's go ahead and just see what it looks like. So we'll fire it up. Oops. I still have the repeater going. Make sure you turn that off before you want to test this. And there we go. You can see the gaps aren't regular, so that's important. If you wanted, you could put a couple of extra blocks in there to plug a couple of those gaps, but I wouldn't really do that because you don't want the player to be sitting up there for too long waiting for a gap to appear. You want them to be able to fire at the thing somewhat continuously. Alright, let's turn the repeater on. And next we're going to hook up row number 3. Okay, that's going to be the next row with the most blocks. This one had 11. And this row is going to sit right above the other one, and we want it to move the opposite direction. So this row we're going to attach to the top path. Okay. And again, I'll just show you a couple of these. I'll show you what the difference is. So the new path connection on that block, come up to the top path, and we'll set the path. And you'll notice this sits right directly on top of the other blocks, vertical wise. And we don't really want that. We want a little bit of a gap between those blocks. So for this row, we're going to have to set a vertical offset. Okay, so we'll come into the properties for this, and let's use our little trick here. We'll go into the logic menu and exit back out just to fix the camera so it won't move around on us. Then we'll go into the block properties. Once again, we'll set orient along the path, and we need to fix the rotation, so we set that to 90 degrees. This time we're going to set the vertical offset to 1, which will lift it up a little bit so that the blocks aren't touching each other. All right, so this is one difference between this row and the row we just did, is you're going to set every block on this row with a vertical offset of 1. Okay, and then we're going to come up to the reset point, and we're going to set this one to 10. And you'll notice, because this path goes clockwise, the block moved to the left. And it moved along over here. And you can see this kind of sits above this gap, which makes it a little bit harder to get through that gap if you're using the catapult to lob things over in a little bit of an arc. So that's where this kind of helps protect this gap. You don't go too high or you'll hit this block. Go too low and you'll hit his chin. So to get through this gap, you got to have the catapult set at the right height. All right, so let's do one more block. New path connection. Connect up to the path once again. We'll go in here to anchor that camera. Toy box path, orient along the path, fix the rotation, vertical offset of 1, and the reset percentage this time is going to be 15. Now I made a mention that this is going to kind of plug this gap, but again these blocks are going to be rotating the other direction, so it's not always going to be plugging that gap. Sometimes it'll be blocking other gaps. Alright, so I think you got the idea of what to do on this row. So all of these are going to do the exact same way. Attach it to the top path, set the vertical offset and everything like I showed you. The only difference is going to be the reset percentage. And for this one, it's going to be 25. For this one, 35. For that one, 45. 50. 60. 70. 80. 85. And 93, just to mix things up a little bit. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and attach all of these offline, and I'll be back again in just a moment. And there is row 2. And you can see the vertical offsets are set on all of them so that they're just a little bit above the other blocks below them. And there aren't quite as many on this row because you don't need as many. Main thing is you just want something to help block, like I said, the arc of the shot from the catapult. All right, so let's just take a quick look at that and see what that looks like now. So turn off the repeater. Come over here. And there you go. That is starting to look pretty cool. All right, go ahead and stop And we'll start up the repeater again. All right, next let's hook up the bottom row of blocks. And I want each row to be moving the opposite direction from the row above or below it. And so for the bottom row, since it needs to move the opposite direction of this row, it's got to move the same direction as this one. Okay, so clockwise, which means the bottom row has to be attached to the top path. So let's come down here. We're going to do a new path connection, and we're going to attach it to the top path. All right, and let's anchor the camera, and then we'll go into the properties, toy box path. Once again, orient along the path. Change the rotation to 90 to correct that. This time, we're going to set the vertical offset to -9. Okay, and that's going to drop it one nudge below that bottom path. And that puts it right where we need it to go. And then on the reset percentage for this one, the first one we're going to leave at 0. Okay? And actually, we'll do that one last. Let's go the other way this time. And so we'll set this all the way around. We'll do the far one first. And the far one is going to be 83. And sometimes I like to do the far one first because it takes the longest. So every subsequent block gets a little bit shorter amount of time to set the reset point. Okay, so the first block is going to go 83. The next block, again, remember to attach it to the top path for this bottom row. Anchor the camera. Go into Properties, Toy Box Path, orient along the path, fix the rotation, vertical offset -9. And for this one, the reset percentage is going to be 63. And these are going to be spaced out a little bit further because they don't really serve any functional purpose. They're not going to prevent the player from shooting the target in the MCP's mouth, okay? So they don't really do anything useful. It's just there for decoration. You want the whole MCP to look like it's rotating. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing for the other blocks. So this one we're going to set to 55, this one to 30, this one to 10, and this one to 0, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and once again do that offline to save a little bit of time. And I will be back in just a moment. Okay, and there's the bottom row all hooked up. That took a little less than 5 minutes. That wasn't too bad. And we only have 5 blocks for the top row. And now because the top row needs to be moving the opposite direction of this row, that means we have to connect the top row to the bottom path. Okay, so let's start on this one. So new path connection, connecting to the bottom row. We'll anchor the menu or the camera, go into the properties. Once again, orient along the path, fix the rotation. Now this time, to get it up above the other row, we have to set the vertical offset to 10. Okay, and that puts it up. If you put it at 9, the bottom edge of that is right at the top edge of that other row, so you got to go 10. And the reset percentage point for this first one will be 80. And we'll go from the largest to the smallest. Do 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 do. So there's the first block. The next block, path connection, connecting to the bottom path. And selecting it can be a little bit of a challenge, because you got all these paths in the way and the blocks on the side of it, but we have to play with it a little bit to get it to select for you. Vertical offset 10. And this time the reset percentage point will be 65. I think I'll just go ahead and hook up these other 3 blocks because they'll go pretty quickly. $65, right? Yeah. Okay. If it's 64, that's not a big deal. Again, these are mainly decoration up on the top row because they're not going to block any of your shots. They just add a little bit of extra movement so that it looks like the entire MCP is spinning like it does in the movie, even though the MCP itself is just sitting there. And this time reset percentage point is going to be 43. All right, 2 more to go. We're getting close to the end. Oh, it selected that one for us automatically. I like that. Once again, orient along the path. Rotation 90. Vertical offset 10. And the reset point this time is going to be 18. And last one. Okay. Reset point on this one is only 10. So that goes pretty quick. Vertical offset 10. Rotation 90. And there we go. That is it for the shields on the MCP. And all the way around, it looks pretty good. They look like big pixels too, so it kind of has a nice digital look to it, which I like. Turn off the repeater, and let's go turn it on and admire our handiwork. Look at that. That is cool. And just so we can get the full effect, we'll come up here where the catapult will eventually sit. This is the player's view of the MCP when they've come across it. And that looks really cool. We have an MCP that looks like it's alive. There's movement. There's glowing eyes. And he looks mean. Next time we'll hook up the logic for the final boss battle with this thing. And then we'll be done with this toy box. Leave a comment before you go, and let me know what you think of my recreation of the MCP and the rotating shields that protect it. I would love to hear from you, and be sure to like and subscribe for more toy box builds like this. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.